Okay, I'm Robert Johnson.
I'm Robert Johnson.
I am Robert Johnson.
I'm Carol Baskin.
Oh, is this like Robert Paulson? I'm Robert Johnson.
I'm Robert Johnson. His name was Robert Johnson.
His name was Robert Johnson.
His name was Robert Johnson.
Here we go. Great. All right, thanks for the folks who came out tonight to continue this. This is certainly a gauntlet of an event. I know I've heard feedback from some Masonic cons where they were actually saying that it may have been too much to do in a day. And having myself, I eat this stuff up, and I went to South Pass's Masonic Con, and Dago kept saying, "Are you ready? Are you ready? It's gonna be all day tomorrow.
Get your rest. Get your rest.
Get your rest." He kept saying, and me, I'm just on coffee all the time, so it's okay, no problem. And I really enjoyed it, but I think for a lot of us, and looking around the room, you all might be the same way, where it's kind of like you eat, sleep, and breathe it all day long. And so the idea behind this panel was to talk to each of you a little bit. And if you can't tell, the handsome guy behind that mask is Dago Rodriguez. We have Bryan Simmons. Dago's out in LA. Bryan is in Attleboro, Massachusetts. And good old Joe Martinez here from Virginia. And Dago ran the South Pasadena Masonic Con in 2019. Bryan, you've put on 4 now?
Yep.
4, and then he's actually pushing 1 more before it goes to New Hampshire.
Yep.
Cool. And then Joe has hosted 2 Esotericons now, along with a couple other guys, Kevin Homan and John Ruark and Jason Richards kind of helped out. But I wanted to go through and just get a little bit of information from you guys to empower anybody out there watching and anybody here how to put something like this on and really what to expect. We've made a lot of jokes before, like what to expect when expecting, what to expect when you're doing a Masonic convention. And so first and foremost, I want to fire over to Brother Simmons and ask you, in terms of Masonic conventions, when did you get the idea to put on the first Masonic Con in Attleboro? And what was the most difficult part that you found, even after 4 years of doing it?
So it started out with the idea of, let's find a way to showcase all the appendant bodies, right? So ours has the appendant bodies, the vendors, and everything else. So it started out with showcasing them. And then we're like, well, we have a big enough building, so why don't we just set it up like a Comic-Con and have it because our first one, we had a Tall Cedars degree, we had a Grotto degree, we had speakers, and it just kind of snowballed. So we just figured, we'll do something at a district level, and then it took off.
What was the most difficult part about you've done it now 4 times, so what's been like the biggest challenge for you?
I would say in the beginning, the biggest challenge was understanding that it was my passion. I mean, my brothers were there to support me and everything, but for it to be the way I wanted it to be, I had to just do it. And then, whenever I needed them, they were there. But for the most part, you just got to bang it out. And it was just accepting that, I think. And now I'm good with it.
So you're good being the one-man army with people who are there to be your support network, essentially?
Yeah, they don't want to plan it. They'll show up. They'll do anything I ask. On our Masonic Con, I mean, we have 40 members and then another 20 wives, and it's awesome. That's all I need.
That's, speaking of, Ezekiel Bates, how many members do you guys have? You're the secretary there, so.
I am, yeah.
How many members do you have?
We are around 189.
So 189 members, and you get about 40 on deck for this.
At any given time, some come in the morning, some come later, but you all have 40 in the building at a time.
That's really kind of remarkable. Let me go over to Dago. You eventually went to the second. You were at the second Masonic Con, right? Or was it the third?
Second or third? Jurassic Park thing?
The third.
Mm-hmm. Third.
When you said Comic-Con, that's essentially what I saw when we when I came in, and I saw Dago he was the master at the time. Was it your first time being the master of that lodge?
In 2019?
Yeah,
Second time.
second time.
Yeah.
So Dago was the second time past master of the lodge at that time for South Pasadena, or no, it was not South Pass. It was for Lodge of Research.
Yes. Wait, well, you saw me at Attleboro for their Masonic Con, right?
Yeah.
Or are you talking about coming to my Masonic Con?
No, when you were at Masonic Con in Attleboro.
I was not the master yet,
Okay,
but
you were there representing the Lodge
Research
of
Lodge.
Research.
Yes. We had a booth.
You had more than a booth. It was like 4 long 6-foot tables in the middle of a lodge room that has like two stories, like huge deck, rad gallery, and in the middle is like Yoda with Star Wars and Freemasonry issue of the Fraternal Review. You had like the lightsabers, and I'm just walking around and I'm thinking, this is the coolest damn vendor booth ever. This feels like I as somebody who's gone to Comic-Con for years. I just stopped going in 2008, but it just took me back to that. It was so amazing.
Well, Bryan hyped it up, saying that it was going to be like 500 to 700 people crossing through there, 30 vendors. So I figured you have to stand out, right? You have to have a booth that's going to get attention to be able to have people approach it and check out what you're selling. So that's why we said, well, let's go all out and do as much as we can to set it up, going cross country with all that stuff.
It was really amazing. So what made you decide to go ahead and plan for a South Pass? I mean, like, you're a meticulous planner. Like, you are a perfectionist. I'll tell everybody out there watching, like, if I ask you, when you tell me an issue is coming out of Fraternal Review to get ready for it, I usually hear that you've been planning it for 6 months. So, like, how long did it take to plan it, and what made you go?
Well, I think it goes back down to like film production work. You take more time in the pre-production, so when you actually start shooting it, because that's where you're going to be spending most of the money, you're fully prepared, and you're just planning for the unpredictable stuff, the bombs that go off that you weren't ready for. But if you've done your planning, you know how to get back on track right away, and you're not sidetracked. And I think that's where most of the work goes. It's in the pre-planning. So when it happens, it can just fall in its place. But I was inspired by Ryan's Masonic Con, because I was like, well, Comic-Con kind of started in San Diego in the West Coast. And out of the 300 lodges that we have out here, I can't believe no one has thought about calling it Masonic Con. And here he is in Massachusetts doing it already and succeeding at it. So what is he doing? I know it's Masonic education, but why is it so successful? So you have to experience it to understand it. Because I had my ideas, because I've gone to Comic-Con in San Diego, and I realized how crazy that event is. And film festivals also, these go on all night. Sometimes some film festivals will be screening films at 2, 3 in the morning because you're going to have hardcore filmmakers there, just like us here. I would say are hardcore Masons in the sense of that we're willing to go the extra mile for an experience like this.
Sure.
So I was inspired, and I had to go check it out. I called him and I said, I want to come and see how you put it together, and see how we can bring that same spirit to the West Coast, and then just inject it times more.
Masonic Convention apprentice.
Yes.
That's amazing. What was so you talked about how you had to do all this planning. So with all the planning that you had to do, I mean, when you pre-plan, you try to plan for all your contingencies. What was the most difficult part, when you actually threw it on?
Making sure that we'd have the space, because your lodge has like 4 floors, right? It's like ours is 2, and it's got wide areas, but for vendors, a big festive board, the speakers, and we were adding movie screenings as well. We were going to plan for 5, but we had 4 screenings. So having the capability to pull all that off in 2.5 days, that kind of became the challenge of making sure it went off and everybody enjoyed it. Everybody felt welcomed, really. We really wanted everybody to feel like they were at their own home lodge and felt comfortable that way. And that was the attitude, the discussions we had with the officers, who were technically the committee that was formed to knock out the event. And that was the rule they had, is like, if you see somebody that doesn't look like they're having a good time or they need help, go up to them, get to know them, shake hands, connect and make them feel at home. I mean, you want them to have a good experience, a good time, especially if they've never been to this lodge, make them aware of it.
Awesome. Well, let me go over to Joe. I mean, Joe, you've had quite a bit different kind of an event, right? Like yours is not necessarily, we didn't call it, y'all didn't call it Masonic Con Virginia. You went with the full-blown Esotericon. I mean, certainly, I don't want to say a subset of Masons who are interested in these concepts, but I mean, there is a contingent of Masons who really identify with the more spiritual and metaphysical and kind of New Age and even just in general philosophy side of Freemasonry. How did you come up with doing that? Like, what was your main drive?
Sure. So I'm going to steal Dago's answer because it's pretty much spot on. But myself and John and Jason and Kevin, we left the second Masonic or the third Masonic Con, and I had been the year before, but we all left and we were like, holy crap, we need to do something like that down here. And we started talking about it, and we decided as a group that we didn't want to do something that catered to everyone, because Bryan was doing that, and that was the same year you did yours. We wanted to have a very niche focus, and exactly to your point, we knew we were going to cater to a smaller number of people.
But did you though?
That's what we planned on. So we had planned to have. We knew it was going to be a smaller event, because Bryan has. I think the year we went, it was definitely over 1,000 people that walked in and out throughout the day, right?
I mean, your number sounds better than the truth.
Sure. So we'll go with that. And it was an all-day thing, and it had something for everyone. If you wanted to hear about sports and Freemasonry, or if you wanted to hear about the Underground Railroad, or if you wanted to hear a little bit of the weird stuff that we like, there was a little bit for everyone. But we decided that we wanted something, for that small contingent, or so we thought of, a little off the beaten path kind of stuff. And we went into it thinking, okay, we're going to plan something. It's going to be small. It's going to be, familial and really niche. And that's how we started our planning. And, we had to throw our planning from the window when we started to market it and started to advertise it. And we started to get such an insane amount of response. And that's basically how we started. So we all left Masonic Con and said, hey, let's put this out there and see what happens. And what we found most striking was the interest that mostly from people that were not local, which we found super interesting. And to your point, people started coming from, outside of the United States to come in and participate. So we found that rather shocking, but exactly to your point, we were like, wow, there is a desire for this. So, let's see what we can put together. So we didn't have the experience that Bryan did, and we definitely don't have the marketing chops that Dago did, but, we just threw stuff against the wall and see what worked and asked people, and then we tried to put it together as quickly as possible.
Well, it certainly was a success. I mean, having gone the first year you had it, I was just blown away by the number of speakers and the quality of the talks that were had. Something that I find interesting also is what I saw in Masonic Con in Attleboro is that, as you pointed out, Joe, people would say maybe they want to go see Nathan Tweedy's awesome talk on baseball and Freemasonry, and those who weren't into it were downstairs at the vendors, or they were doing this. Or when Chris Hodap did a talk last year, and he was up there, and some people weren't into Chris Hodap's talk, so they were downstairs shopping. It was really interesting to kind of see this almost university scheme, like go to the classes you want and shop when you don't. And it was just really, really cool. And so I noticed that about yours. I didn't notice that about yours. I feel like people just sat down and just drank up everything, and the same with yours. And most people were up here, they, like, whether they felt they had an obligation to be in the room for all these presentations or not. Certainly was not the case I was trying to make, but having maybe it speaks to the thirst of the Masons in the area, right? Like, is it just so dry out there, and we're so thirsty for education or presentations or a meaning, something to do that's Masonic and meaningful and impactful?
Well, I think with us, it was a conscious choice to almost filter everybody to the talks, because our lodge room is almost as big as this one. And we didn't want this
bigger than this.
a little bit, but we didn't want the speakers to feel that they were speaking to an empty room. So if we were going to do the screenings in the dining room at the same time as anybody was going to be speaking, we thought that we're going to split or go to the dining room and watch a movie instead. So we had to manipulate it in that sense where, well, you get talks in the day and you'll get screenings in the evening. And that's how you'll get a little of everything. If you want to stay for the screenings, you can stay. If you don't, you can leave. Or if you don't want to come to the talks, you'll come later that evening and catch them. But we really didn't want the speakers to feel that they were talking to an empty house, for sure. And it was purposely done that way.
I think anybody who's gone and traveled around has done a talk where, there's 5 or 6 folks in a room.
Yeah. And that's not that inspiring. You're at Masonic Con, right?
Yeah, right. So if you have the big venue, you want to make sure.
You want to make sure.
Well, I kind of got off on a tangent about it. Let me go back to Joe for a minute. I'm going to ask, what was the most difficult thing that you had to challenge, that you were faced with?
It sounds like a terrible problem to have, but our biggest challenge was scaling as quickly as we had to. Because again, when we left Attleboro and we started to say, okay, let's do this, let's put it together, let's throw it out there, we would have been ecstatic if we had 40 or 50 people there. I mean, that's the honest truth. And when we put out that initial response and we had over 100 people who said they would stop and buy tickets right then and there, we were like, holy crap, we need to really plan this together and, put it together and put a package together that's worthy of all these people wanting to make the trek. And so that's when we got, and this was the biggest complaint we got. And I thought it was a really interesting complaint, but, we put an honest survey out there. We're like, tell us what you like, tell us what you didn't like, what we can do better. And there weren't many complaints, but the biggest issue that people saw was it was a really long day. We had 8 speakers in one day, very little room for breaks. For those that have been there, we don't have the lodge that you have here or what Bryan has in Attleboro. It's a very small space, and we choreographed it so people would go to a talk and then go see vendors and then go back to a talk. And we had an army of rainbow girls that were directing everybody back and forth.
They were amazing.
And they were awesome. We can't speak enough about them. And, but we choreographed it so people would always, and we packed that room. There were people standing in the back because we ran out of chairs.
Yeah.
And thankfully the fire marshal never came that day. And, but it was amazing how quickly we had to learn how to scale because none of us had put on a conference of that type before, all by ourselves. And I think that was probably the biggest pain point for us was, and I think Bryan hinted at it, was if you're going to do this, just realize that you're going to do it yourself, whether it's one person or a small group of people. It's like people are not going to help you in the way that you think, an army of 300 people can put together a conference, like Comic-Con or, things like that, where you see it's all big and marketed and stuff. Just plan to do it yourself and you won't be disappointed.
Yeah, I can hear that.
Yeah.
So we talked about some difficulties that you had. Before I get to, the things that, far surpassed your expectation. We're in the middle of a global pandemic. And I think all of us have been affected to that, in ways related to planning something like a Masonic convention. So I think, first and foremost, I want to, since you were just talking about it, you just finished Esotericon Part 2, really, which you had to make a tough call. You waited till the last minute, and tell us a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's interesting that all of us are up here because we all talk offline on Facebook and stuff, and there's a group of us that are putting on conferences. And we, starting probably in February, we started talking about it, like, hey, what are you guys going to do? Are you going to keep going? Are you going to cancel it for this year? Are you going to postpone it? So Bryan went through that. Dago's still on the fence. I'm not going to ruin any surprises, but we tried to wait as long as we could to see what most of the states were doing, and then we said, screw it. We're like, let's try and put it online. You know, there was nothing tiled. There was no secret content. People still wanted us to do it. So we threw it out to the masses and asked everybody who had purchased a ticket and asked them, what would you like to do? Would you like to have some sort of event? You know, it can't be, you know, the fellowship and the intimacy that we had the first year, but we can do it online and give it a whirl and see what works. And I'm gonna be honest, out of all the people that purchased tickets, there were maybe 4 or 5 people that said, I'm not interested, give me my money back. Everybody else was in on it. They're like, we don't care how you do it, just do it again. So that kind of motivated us to, you know, start to look into all of the technologies that every single person in this room now requires for their day-to-day living, you know, in a post-COVID world. And we ran with it, and we had better attendance this year than we had the very first year. And
You guys had over 150 people buy tickets this year.
more than, yeah, and most of them log in for the event. We were surprised. We're like, wow, you know, we thought people would buy the ticket and maybe watch the videos 2 weeks later. But, you know, these people just kept logging in and logging in and logging in. We were like, holy crap, we've got to be on our A game today. So, and I mean, you were there. It went smashingly well.
Yeah, I can attest to that. I think I spent the weekend at Joe's house, and I would say, you know, a good portion of the day was clicking the approve button to get people, you know, registered for the links, you know, when they were coming in late and things. It was just a phenomenal job. Let me go over to Bryan. I mean, you guys were supposed to have Masonic Con 6 months ago or something, and then you were going to hand it off to brother Ryan Flynn, right?
Yep.
Who is going to do it in New Hampshire. But
Yep.
now, tell us what's going on.
So ours is typically at the end of April, and we wrote it out the best we can. So I think the draw for mine is it's global, right? Across the Masonic spectrum. So we want the newest member, the oldest member to come and find something they enjoy. So where Joe is niche-y and he's able to do the way he did, I can't put on the event at the quality that is expected with this going on.
Yeah.
Ultimately is how it kind of falls. So we pushed it to August and figuring this is cool, you know,
We'll see, yeah.
and then it's still the same issue. So now it's May.
So now it's May of 2021.
Yep.
And I think my wife and I are still coming. I'm going to call it our anniversary present. We're going to Boston, baby. So, yeah, I mean, how has that impacted the, you know, letting Flynn run it in New Hampshire? I mean, are you guys going to push that then to 2022 then?
Essentially, yeah, we're really close. So he, you know, what's he going to do?
Yeah, he's not going to come beat you up.
Yeah, it's, you know, you invest all this money into it and you can't get it back.
Yeah.
So you're almost stuck. So we have the same quality of event, but now it just pushed and, you know, came here and I talked to a few people and I might be adding some stuff. And so.
Well, I know every time when you go traveling around to these things, you know, we all have to have Bryan here because he's like the mastermind. And, you know, you make these little changes and things, you know, based on stuff you're seeing, just like I think Jeremy said to me from Amity this weekend, he said, you know, so brilliant that, you know, you printed these badges and then you can just turn them over and flip them up and see the schedule. And I was like, no. So that's a trick I got from Dago. Just little weird details that just really amazing things that make things flow better. How about you, Dago? How's the COVID gone along? I mean, you initially said you weren't going to do Masonic Con every year. It wasn't going to be annual. You want to do it every other.
Every other year, yeah.
But with the amount of planning you do, I mean, are you still going to be able to do something 2021?
We probably might not, just because our lodges are probably not going to open till the beginning, if not later, into 2021, and they might open slowly, so it's not going to be full openings either. And we really wanted to possibly do some remodeling in the lodge to prepare it for Masonic Con. And now that we might not be able to get started on that until midway of next year, it would really throw a wrench into it.
What about a virtual option? You thought about that?
Well, I've spoken to the few committee guys about that, and I like Bryan said, it's about the experience.
Yeah.
Right. It's about being here, present, and enjoying the fellowship with your fellow brothers. And there's nothing wrong with doing it online, but it's just that disconnect that happens.
Sure.
The whole thing about a convention is that you go and travel somewhere. which is also part of the Masonic experience. And if you're not going to travel just virtually, then it kind of burns out that candle out in a way. So it's not as, I feel, as special as it was like when you were there, right? It's like, it wouldn't have been the same thing. Especially if we want to do screenings with panels and Q&As with the filmmakers, and
there's a warmness that you get. You know, I mean, had Masonic Con Chicago gone all virtual, I would have been okay with it. But it was just so cool to be able to still work with our temple board here, our local fire department, and to still be able to put on an event where we had a limited in-person event.
For sure, and it's a testament to you and to Joe to be able to pull it off fully virtual, and for you to do half of it virtual, and that says a lot, and that's great. But I also feel that we shouldn't use that as the crutch of like, well, now maybe all these Masonic events should be virtual because that's the best experience that you could really get out of it. No, we all been to them in person, and we know that the best experience is to dwell together and to be together, and to do it separate. For now, it's what we're doing to make it work. We're not just going completely dark and black on it. We're making it work, and that's great. But I think that there's something to be said to say we got to do it in person because it brings us closer together.
A response, Joe?
Yeah, I do. I actually strangely agree with Dago. No, I think the West Coast and East Coast unite. There is nothing to, you lose so much by not being here, and having come here to Chicago for this, I can absolutely agree with that. And like you pointed out, when we decided to go all virtual, it was a 11th hour decision. But having come here to your Masonic Con, one of the things that we discussed for next year was, well, let's see how Robert does, and maybe next year we'll do both an in-person and a virtual, because like you said, we are very niche-y. We are catering to a smaller population of Masons and people interested in Masonry and, other esoteric orders and things like that. So giving people the ability from Australia or the UK to be able to log in and experience some of it in part, I think is a win-win.
Absolutely.
It doesn't take away from that. I mean, the first Esotericon was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. It really was, being able to, with three guys that I really trust, put something together, and at the end of the day feel accomplished was a game changer for me. And it's probably kept me in the craft longer than I probably would have stayed, because I suddenly found a room full of friends that understand me and understand why I'm here. And, you're not the only person in the room, but every single one of those people felt that way. They go to their lodge and eat their green beans and just bite their tongue and deal with it. And, but they had this one chance once a year to come together and be with like-minded folks. And so I think we would be taking away from people if we decided to go back to all in person.
No, I agree. I think the great thing is that you've seen how it works, and like I talked to them about that as well, that we would offer also a virtual pass, but we would still make it an in-person event.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
For sure. And you're right. It opens it up to people from different countries all over the world that might want to tap in and check it out. And that's a great and beautiful thing.
And it wasn't, believe me, that wasn't an organic revelation that we had. It was all as a result of deciding to go all virtual.
For sure.
Because as soon as we decided to go all virtual, the first question that people asked us, great, can more people buy tickets? We're like, well, crap, we never thought of that.
There's no limit.
So yeah, why not? Open more tickets. And the floodgates open on who wanted to come. These were people that couldn't come the first year, now see an option and are now attending. And like I said, it turned out amazing. So I think this has given us an opportunity to show that you can, especially you are showing people that you can have a hybrid event, not knowing what's going to happen 6 months from now or in March or what have you, and still have a good level of success and confidence in putting on a great event. For sure.
Let me go over to Bryan. I have a couple more questions before I get to a couple of the questions that has been submitted. Bryan, I want to ask what are a couple pieces of advice that you would give to any brother in this room who feels slightly inspired, whether they want to, put on a one-day thing at their lodge and have a couple speakers out on lunch, or somebody who wants to do a 3-day max event or even do a camping thing like Brother Jason Shammy does out in Ohio. Some advice from you, from your experiences.
So it's going to sound douchey, but ultimately it's really easy to do. Like,
Yeah.
you can attest to that. There's nothing hard. There's a list of all the Masonic vendors. You email them. You want to come to our event? We all know enough speakers to make it interesting. You just put it together. It's I don't know.
So is Brian's advice just like Nike, just do it?
Yeah, just do it. It's literally not hard.
All right.
But
you got something to say. So
but be prepared to put in the work. It's going to be work, and it's going to be a thankless job. And if you think you're going to be patted on the back every turn that you do with this, you're not. So if you're the kind of person that needs that positive reinforcement for getting up early, staying in late, folding chairs, putting out tables, it's not for you.
Yep.
If you're okay with that, if with you and another brother or your wife, your friends show up and set up, break down, then it's do it for sure. But if you're not that type of personality, you really have to want to do it. You really are not need to do it, but want to do it and have a passion and a vision for it. Ask yourself, why do I want to do this? And if the answer is, again, for service, because you want to do something for the greater good of your lodge, your community, then the planets will align and it'll be a successful event. If it's for selfish reasons, you're going to get frustrated. You're going to throw in the towel, maybe cancel it before it even starts. Because we actually had somebody else try to do a Masonic Con in California 4 months before we did ours. And he just got frustrated with his planning, wasn't really selling tickets because he started almost a year and a half early with the tickets and nobody was jumping on it yet. So he killed it. He canceled it. And it opened us up to really do ours even bigger. But I question why. What happened? Where did the fire get put out that you were so gung ho and then now you're not?
Or was there a fire to begin with there? Who was he doing it for?
Exactly.
It was for the wrong reasons.
Right.
Absolutely.
So you have to do it for your intentions just have to be in the right place because it's going to be a lot of work, a lot of time commitment, a lot of frustration, but the internal reward that you get after it's done, it's great. It's priceless, but you are going to have to work for it.
Yeah, I remember how hard you worked for it, and I watched you deliver a speech at the end of the third day.
Yeah.
And I watched you tear up, man. And I was in the audience, and I thought, I'm not crying with this guy.
Yeah, I got misty-eyed because it was really a group effort. It was that the committee was the officers of that year because I was a master that year, and I had their blessing because I said I'm planning the next year, and this is what I want to do. But I can't do it alone. If I need you to commit for a whole weekend and days leading up to it to put this event together. Are you in or not? I need to be serious about this. And out of all the officers, only 2 had to back out for personal reasons, but I had him there the whole time. And that's the only reason I think it really came out the way it did because they were there the whole step of it. They were involved. They had investment in it after we agreed to do it.
Yeah. Joe, how about you? What advice do you have after two times and 2 different experiences?
Sure. Well, the big one is I'm going to be as douchey as the distinguished gentleman from New England. And I'm going to say that don't ask for permission to do it. Don't look to, and this sounds terrible to say, so I'm going to choose my words very carefully because this will be on the interwebs. You don't need any official sponsorship. You don't need any large umbrella organization to help you in this endeavor. If you want to have an event and you want to do something that you think is special and wonderful and that other people are going to get behind, it will happen. To Brian's point, it's a ton of time and a lot of the things are thankless. But if you're doing something that you will like, I guarantee you other people will come. But the big thing is don't wait for this committee or that committee or these people to give you your blessing. Just go ahead and do it.
Well, that's an interesting point you make. funded, were you privately funded, or did the lodge help fund the event?
No, we made sure that our lodge did not sponsor
Okay.
the event. Any other bodies outside of just the lodge did not sponsor the event because we didn't want somebody telling us what we could and could not do.
So your ticket sales made the.
So it was all self-funded. Our ticket sales paid for all the speakers, for all the tchotchkes, all the food. It was all self-contained, and we made sure that we ran lean. Because I didn't feel like paying a tax bill at the end of the year. So we made sure we budgeted and planned and said, okay, this is how much it's going to cost. So this is how much we need to make. And, we stayed pretty much even the whole time.
Yeah.
And anything else that we had extra, we donated.
I think that's like so great of a thing to remember is, I did the same thing with Masonic Con Chicago, which was all the ticket sales came in, then I spent every dollar returning the investment to anybody who was coming or going to be online. And at the end of the day, right, because you want to serve the craft and do your thing, but you also don't want to be out $1,000 in your pocket, and you don't want the lodge to have to pay for something. And just having a really good support network. Let me ask you a couple of these questions. The first one is to Brother Simmons. He said he's asking, how has attendance grown over the last 4 years?
So that's a really unique dynamic that we found. So ultimately, I would say we went from about 250 to 300 the first year, and then the last time we did it, we were over 500. But the dynamic that we found was the first year it was heavy local and just a few people, and now it's gone the opposite way. So now we have more out-of-state people coming to our Masonic Con than in-state. I don't know what that says about my state, but
I do remember you having, Grand Lodge of Rhode Island folks there, and really very few any ups from Mass, right? I mean, we had Heath was there, and you had some DDGMs.
But again, I mean, ultimately, to Joe's point, it's Grand Lodge doesn't build events essentially,
They
right?
don't,
Everything's grassroots up.
Mm-hmm.
So just
I mean, anybody who thinks about that, and I'll mention it tomorrow. For this event, I ran it under WCY Media, so that I would avoid any imperial entanglements. I really didn't want to hear, if somebody had a problem with a speaker or whatever. And when I had, asked about that, I said, I actually sent an email to our Grand Lodge saying, hey, next year we're doing this thing. Hey, 6 months we're doing this thing. And I wanted them to see if they would send out an email, and they actually ignored me on both emails. They wouldn't do it. So, it just goes to show that no Grand Lodge is going to come down and tell you, hey, you should do this thing. I think you should just do it if you're going to do it. Next question. What kind of costs have been associated with these kinds of events? I mean, I feel that's a really legit question. I mean, Joe and I, we both had the self-fund. You guys had like lodge sponsorships.
Yeah,
So we have kind of two different models here, but let's go over to Dago. What kind of costs did your lodge incur putting on the event? And for everybody listening, I mean, Dago did a 3-day event, a festive board, Friday night, all-day speakers on Saturday with screenings in the evening.
4 screenings.
4 screenings in the evening. We were up like 2.
Lunch included.
Lunch included, a 7-course dinner.
Festive board with servers and everything.
Sunday, coffee, donuts, and half a day of Masonic presentation. So what did they expect of that?
We budgeted $20,000 for the event and spent, I think, 18, and came under $4,000.
Yeah. How about you, Brian?
Well, with my treasurer in the room, I don't want him to call BS. So, to be honest, it was, I want to say right now we're in the $4,000 or $5,000 range. So all you really have, though, I mean, obviously we're not as elaborate as South Pasadena, but I mean, you have
a festive board.
You have a festive board typically, right? So you have food, and then your speakers. You should never pay for a speaker unless you fly them out, you put them in a hotel, buy them dinner, whatever. But he wants money to come speak, don't do it. It's
Bye.
not worth it. You're out.
Oh, snap.
But yeah, but ultimately that's it, right?
Yeah.
Like, clean your building.
Marketing, if you need to like get a website going, do trailers,
Yeah.
that's kind of
I,
gets you
I found
also.
that to be true also.
Yeah.
How about you, Joe? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, being self-funded, we basically did the math backwards.
Same.
We sold, we got some feelers out and sold tickets. And then we worked backwards on what we had made and said, okay, who the hell can we get to speak? So we got speakers, and I'd say 60 to 70% of our cost was speakers, flying them out, putting them up,
Yeah.
things like that. Not a single one of them asked for money, to actually speak, but putting them up, make sure they were taken care of, and paying for their experience. That was the bulk of our costs. And then, we had a much smaller event than Dago and even Bryan. We had a pub night the night before, and we picked up the tab on that. That wasn't bad. And then we had the all-day event with lunch, 8 speakers. We didn't feed you guys dinner, right? No, we didn't.
You did, you got pizza.
Oh, that's right. We bought
Yeah.
pizzas. That's right. Yeah, absolutely. We had, free help from the ever awesome Rainbow Girls. And we made sure we took care of them, as well. So I think the first year was between 9 and 10. But we spent every dime. But again, we worked backwards from what we thought we were starting with. And then we started to get more people buying tickets, and we were like, okay, well, let's get this person farther away and let's keep adding on to it. So we added, first we had Saturday, and then we were like, wow, we've got extra money. Let's have a Friday event too. And oh crap, we've got more stuff to do. So let's have a Sunday event. So that's why we all went to the House of the Temple, because people were there and wanted to do more. So we worked with what we had, but yeah, we didn't, thankfully, my wife's probably watching. I can tell you, not a single dime came out of our own pockets for that. We paid for everything
that's
from
awesome.
what we brought in. So
Yeah, I did the same thing. I worked backwards. One of the largest expenses that I found was plated dinners.
Mm.
Thinking about the plated dinner was just getting crazy. And with COVID, I hated the idea of people having to get up and go serve themselves. And, initially I had reached out to Illinois youth groups to see if they would be cool to come out and serve. But I didn't get really much feedback on doing that. And then COVID happened anyway, so I didn't go for it. And we just made this we had a good deal. Space Nova, my lodge, deals with this joint that's local, that's amazing. So yeah, I mean, the festive board was a big chunk of money. I basically said, who do we need to feed? All right, now add all these amenities on top of it, broke it down by cost and said, okay, my ticket needs to be this much money.
Yeah.
And take away PayPal fees, right? Don't forget that, because you're going to shoot yourself in the foot.
Mhm.
I think altogether this event was probably around 16 with because it was 3 days. And a large chunk of the money that was spent is anybody who got an executive pass. We bought them a magazine subscription. And it's not like, those are free. I got a great deal from Ben, so he did us a solid. But yeah, I would just say, make sure you do your math and plan accordingly, and work with your lodge treasurer, huh, Brian?
That's what we do.
I have, let's see, 2 more questions before we kind of start to wrap up here. One of them is how hard it is to market these events. Dago, you touched on this a little bit. You talked about marketing.
Well, how do you create excitement for an event that's never been done before, especially on our side of town? And luckily we had a brother that works in branding and marketing. So he really came in and consulted and helped create the website. And then we started doing these little video trailers that we would just release every month or so to get people excited about it and interested. And then just revealing, like you did, like speakers every so often without letting it all out of the bag at once, to just keep the fire burning on the event leading up to it. You want to create that sense of surprise, but also excitement for it without revealing everything all at once, because then you have another year, 6 months until it happens, and then it kind of dies down. How do you keep it exciting after that?
Yeah, I agree. I think having a good partnership works. I'm just reminded of it because he's sitting right here. Jeremy Barnes of Amity helped us out quite a bit with marketing
Yeah.
and the ability to kind of like manage our attendance and use Amity check-in. Jeremy, you mind coming over here for a minute? Have it, let me get another chair.
Ooh, where's that mask?
I'll sit on the,
All right, sit on the stairs.
Hey, fella.
What's up, boys? From somebody's perspective who kind of, because you have such a wide range of people accessing your platform, marketing in that respect, I mean, you kind of have a unique perspective on that, I think.
I think it's interesting. I've planned a couple of these events in a few different, pieces of my life. Not so much for masonry, but, you guys have talked a lot about logistics and costs and stuff like that. But the layer that I think also adds on top of it is, well, what's the Masonic layer, right? How many Grand Lodges are represented here? Do you know where your people are coming from and how they're affiliated with you and, all that sort of thing. And, it's not the sort of thing where you need to say, oh, you can't be here because you're not in good standing or, like that's, you're not really, it's not a tiled event. But understanding how people are related to the organization can really help you shape how you approach the event, right? And so we're thrilled to be in a position to say, hey, look, we can help with that. And we'd love to, anybody that's doing an event, we'd be happy to help work with them.
What about you, Brian? What do you have insights on marketing?
So
You guys are unique. I mean,
the first year sucked, like really bad. The amount of lack of common sense that's out there, it's like, I don't think you should be calling it con because it's a negative. I'm like, no, it's not.
this is the
It's
direct, I heard this.
Yeah, and I still get it, but I mean, the first year was horrible. Like, guys, no, it's
So what you're
chill
saying is
out.
somebody needs to start the Masonic Pro?
Yeah, it's
The Masonic Pro,
There
your
it
new
is.
convention.
sounds awesome,
I
right?
hate it.
How about you, Joe? How was the marketing?
So I mean, I'm not a marketing person. I learned on the fly a lot, but what I did learn was, we did exactly that, was give people teases of it a little bit along the way. Every 2 weeks we released a speaker, and that went back a few months. And we noticed that ticket sales increased every time we released a new speaker.
Yeah.
So we definitely learned from that. I mean, I followed sales 101 tactics of, blast it to every single Masonic group all over Facebook. People were kicking me out of the groups because I was blasting so much crap out there.
Me too.
And, but, it was just, we just played the numbers game, where it's like, great, if you get it out there 1,000 times, that's a positive win. And we looked at it, it sounds tacky, but we looked at it like a sales pipeline. It's like the more exposure we got, the more positive response we would get. And then we would know where to target those. Like, you know what, this Masonic Facebook group actually sucks, so we're not going to go there anymore. Or this one, all they talk about is, lapel pins and stuff like that. We're going to skip that one. And so we started to target all our advertising and marketing, and we did spend a little bit of Facebook dollars on marketing. And it did help, it would target certain people and give us back positive results. And we had John Ruark, who loves data, and he would, smash that stuff and tell us, hey, you know what, go here and go here and go here, because this is where we're getting more positive response.
And I was just going to say that the algorithms now with technology is crazy, because our branding brother also said, look, whenever you reveal a speaker, wherever he's from, we get a ton of hits from that area. So before you reveal the next speaker, we could also start marketing there. That way there's an air that's getting created to funnel the traffic towards you. So that was something
That's
really
a free
interesting.
one. That's free.
Yeah. So wherever they're coming from, if you target that state, for example, with your marketing instead of the whole country, then it gives you a more focused marketing.
I mean, I think in the end, right, like from the first one, we started building relationships, and that's word of mouth is huge. So now we just have a network, right? So all the podcasts talk about all the different Masonic cons, and we talk about it in our lodge about theirs, and next thing you know, everyone's, so it's like this big network of brotherhood, because it's all the same people for the most part. You could say 30% of the people go to all of them, right?
The roadies.
Which is huge.
Yeah. Yeah, there's this one person that's notably missing from today.
He's online. I saw his name.
I saw
Me
him
too.
Yep.
Y'all, okay, so
Yeah.
would you spell his name? B
IL.
S-H-O-R-T. Bill
Yeah.
Short. Bill
Yeah.
Short.
It's a shame.
We love you, man.
I was excited. I thought he'd be here.
Bill Short has traveled to every Masonic Con. He
Yeah.
lives in Nebraska, and his bragging right is that he will drive. He's within driving distance anywhere in the United States. Man, I want to get to these questions, but I know we're running short on time. Maybe the last one here. Brother Greg, I already asked one from you, so let me go over to Jose Benzer. I know you were excited to come out, but you couldn't. RJ and Joe especially, what effect did COVID seem to have? Do you think you got more attendees virtually than you might have had if things were as originally planned? Is wide virtual attendance the future?
You want to go first or you want me to?
So I'll go first. I have no problem saying that I had no intention of going virtual whatsoever. I acknowledge the fact that there are people who sometimes can't make it to meetings. And I'm not trying to be cold or anything. I just mean like, I get it and I'm sorry. Like it's an added piece of stress. And it was stressful to figure out how to put this on. You know, I don't have billions of dollars to buy 10 computers to have all these running. So I'm like disconnecting one computer that I own and hooking up a Dell here, an old Mac here, asking Joe to run a slideshow here, having my son bring in his school Chromebook to run. I mean, serious. So I don't know that I would run another virtual one unless we can't, you know, like the safety of the people. That's what I care about, right? So if I can't, yeah, Masonic Con, Chicago, in some future state, is it virtual? It's virtual if it has to be, but generally my intention is always to just do an in-person event. And that's just, maybe that's selfish, maybe it's a little bit lazy. But it's a headache for sure.
So yeah, I mean, I'll agree with that, but I think I hate agreeing with Bryan, but you know, we have a little bit of a different niche with Esotericon. So were we absolutely surprised that people were clamoring to, after we decided to go virtual, to tell us to open up ticket sales? Because we were just there to appease the people that, you know, committed to us and bought tickets already. And we were like, holy crap, more people want to buy tickets and come. So I think for us, you know, without speaking to the other three guys, I think we've already established that having some sort of hybrid event is definitely the way to go. Will you get a better experience by being there in person? Absolutely. You know, in the first year we had proved that. But again, we always have that mindset of, you know, if 50 people are interested and want to sit in that lodge room with us and partake, and, you know, spoiler, you know, we'll probably be back at Manassas Lodge because, you know, we found a home there and it was a really good place to do it. It's not the biggest lodge in the state, but it's home for us, and it was home for a lot of people that came that first year. So do we need to pack that place up to have an event? Absolutely not. But do we want to cater to that person that can't make it out, or, you know, if COVID's still going on, or people that don't get the type of education that we're providing in their own lodges, do we want to give them an avenue to do that? Absolutely, 100%. So happily do it another year.
Right on, right on. All right, so for real, last question, and then I have a question for Jeremy, I think I want to ask. But Marty, you guys know Marty Dagoberto, with the likely need to continue having hybrid events for some time, what's the thinking on ways to approximate the non-programming time, the critical networking and building that usually happens between and after sessions? You know, I'm thinking like right off the top of my head, I'm thinking breakout rooms or whatever, but.
Yeah, so we actually discussed that. So when we decided, and, you know, we discussed this, you know, most specifically when we decided to go all virtual, the one big thing that the four of us saw was when, you know, when people started, groups like Refracted Light, and started having online Zoom education and things like that. The one thing that killed us was having 45 people in a Zoom meeting, which is great, but 40 of them don't know how to turn off their damn microphone. And we were like, you know what, we're not having that happen, during an event with 150 plus people. So that's probably why you did, but I know we moved to the webinar format because we did not need 200 hot mics. And we were like, you know what, you're not there to see, my pretty hair or, my handsome face. You're there to see the presenter and the speaker and the presentation itself. So moving to a webinar format saved our lives, because if I had to yell at 200 people to turn off their microphones, I mean, some of us are experiencing that with our children going to school online. And, some places it's really orderly and awesome. And some places it's a madhouse. I know my house, it's a madhouse, but, doing that made everything so much easier because we didn't have to worry about all the logistics and the drama and the inexperience with a lot of this technology that people are seeing for the first time. So.
Right on. Jeremy, let me ask you, particularly, I want to know what's your take on Masonic conventions because it's kind of a recent thing, having taken up over the last 5 or 6 years, and how that compares in your experience of traveling around, with Amity and going all these Grand Lodge sessions and dealing with, Conference of Grand Masters. And I mean, you really see a lot of the weird logistical stuff behind the scenes. What's your take on Masonic conventions?
It's interesting. I think not to overuse the word innovation, but I think they're a fabulous innovation in what we as U.S. Masonry know. In a lot of areas, this sort of discussion goes on in lodges around the country, that may be smaller than ours. And we're sort of taking that seriousness that you often see outside the United States and distilling it into an event, and I think it's really great that all these events have come up. I think it's a fabulous question to say, well, look, even if people that aren't there, how can we help this? Whether it's, let's say, a Facebook room on the side or chatting Andy or whatever it may be, I don't think we're going to see less people interested in it. I think you're going to find more Masons that really want Freemasonry, right? And you certainly get that at your lodge. But the amazing thing that technology brings and that these events bring are the ability to share with people, as we say, that you would have been at a perpetual distance from, right? And so for me, I love these conventions. I think they're absolutely worth every dollar you can spend on them. And I'm really thankful that there are guys like you that are committed to really put it together because it's something that we need. So thank you all.
Hey, thank you, Jeremy. I appreciate all your help and everything that Amity's doing for us with check-ins and making it easy. Up until just recently, I take attendance for my lodge or whatever, and I develop a percentage so I know how many people come to lodge meetings. That I'm going back and forth between Google Sheets and RSVPs, and that's a pain in the butt. So I want to thanks for alleviating that.
That's what we do.
So round robin, final thoughts, Dago.
I think that we need to continue being creative and open-minded and evolving these events and making them grow and supporting each other in promoting these events and going to them as well, bringing them up, bringing brothers from our lodges to travel and see how other lodges are doing it as part of the experience of that growth and understanding and how important they are and how effective they really are when you get to see them done at other places, to see what you can do better or what you're not doing better. You just can grow from it, I think. But yeah, for sure.
Right on. How about you, Bryan? Final thoughts.
I think the final thought I would have is we need to start seeing, like, people that are attending these, what's your spin on it? Like, everything has to evolve because we can't keep doing the same thing over and over again. And that's one of the main reasons my Masonic Con's going to another guy in another state, because I want to see it evolve in a different way. It's reached its life with me, and it's, we got to start thinking of the next thing and the next thing.
I think that's like so key. Make the kind of corollary to a lodge secretary who stays too long. He gets stale. He gets bored. He gets tired, complacent, same old stuff every day, cookie cutter thing. You've complained for 2 years now that you've been bored, right? But I mean, it's not that you're maybe you're bored, right? You always do such a great job and people love it, but you personally, I mean, you want to see it grow. Like it's a baby of yours. So
So you get to the point where it doesn't grow, right? Like I can't make it better than it is the way I have it. So I'm giving it to Ryan Flint, and he's going to do great things. It's in an awesome building next year,
Yeah.
and it's gorgeous. You guys are going to love it. You know, and that's the key is you got to let things go. You can't have that pancake breakfast. Nobody's coming.
nobody's,
Got to let it go.
I love it. I love it. How about you, Joe?
So, yeah, no, I'm going to reiterate what I said before. Do not ask for permission. If you have an idea in your mind and you have the time to commit to it, just do it. Do it. If people are interested in your idea, they will be there for you. But just put your head down and bite your lip and get on with doing the work. Because I think you said it last night at dinner during one of the toasts. This to me is what Freemasonry is all about. And going to Attleboro is what Freemasonry is all about. And we're going to California or coming here. That to me is Freemasonry. So if you have an idea and you have a niche or you just want to please everybody, just put your head down and do it. It can happen.
Well, thank you so much, you guys, for taking some extra time. Thank you to everybody who's hanging out and stayed here for this. Round of applause for you guys. Thank you guys.
Thank you.